Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Marcy's Magic podcast, where I, your host, Marcy, will be talking to you all about God, love, spirituality, and so much more. Today, I have the lovely Nienke with me, talking about all things creativity from a very spiritual and self expression aspect. I'm so excited to have this conversation because from the moment that we connected, I just felt this like we need to be friends. We need to talk more. Please, let's stay in touch. So I'm absolutely thrilled to have you join us today. And I'm going to pass over to Nienke to do an introduction and tell us about your work.
Great. Yeah. First of all, it's absolutely likewise. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me. Also felt this connection, so it's really lovely, like seeing that come into fruition. Yeah, I'm Nienke. I'm a designer, an educator, and now a creativity mentor. I'm really inspired to empower people creatively. So I'm very excited to speak about creativity with you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for this lovely introduction. So let's kick off by having a conversation about what creativity is for you, because I know that you're very passionate about bringing people back into their creativity. So tell us more.
So, first off, I think the way we think about creativity has changed a lot and is currently changing a lot. Um, I think previously a lot of people thought that creativity was something that in a way can be cultivated, but people were just born with, or like some people were born with. Like, yeah, recently I read a book where in the preface someone was saying that talent is just genetic and that some people are just, able to have what it takes to be successfully creative and others don't. I vehemently don't agree with that. And I really believe that creativity is a way of operating, a way of being, um, a mode of being, maybe a vibe in which you operate, and that everybody has access to this. We are all born with this. We all have this as our birthright. And what's happened is that a lot of people in this society now, or in the last decades, have really kind of become estranged from that after childhood. They kind of, education really kind of beats it out of us. And we get prepared for the workforce, and a lot of people just end up being in this space of, secretly, deep down, they wish they were more actively creative, but they've told themselves, or they've allowed for this narrative of, I'm not creative, or I'm not allowed to be, or that's useless. I need to make money, and you can't make money with art. Um, but actually, secretly, their souls would like to be creating more. And I think this is why it's important that we have these conversations about it, and that people like me, they're popping up, that want to support people in that journey.
I love that so much. I love what you said about it being a state of being, because that's exactly how I see it as well. Like, it's not a task. It's not. Yes, it's something that you do, but essentially, before you do, you are. And what you said there about it, how like we've become so disconnected from it because as as adults, we don't prioritize play, we don't prioritize fun, or we do the fun, but in a way that makes us maybe often even forget about the everyday life. So a lot of people will turn to like going out and drinking or just like watching TV. So like really numbing out everything around us because we think that's the way to really switch off. Whereas actually, if we tap into what's within us, we can really create greatness. And the way that I see it is that this greatness can be translated into so many things, and not just like creating art, but also the things that you create in your life. Because for me, for example, creativity expresses itself through everything that I do. This podcast is an I'm actually getting shivers. This podcast is part of my creative expression because I felt like I had a lot to say and I didn't have any sufficient outlet to be able to say everything that I wanted to say, like on Instagram or through a blog. It just wasn't cutting it. I needed something much bigger. So that's why I created the podcast. And there's no attachment on it becoming the best listened to podcast worldwide. There's literally like, I don't care about the numbers of it, because for me it's just a way of expressing myself. But then when we finish this recording, I'm going to trial a new bread recipe. To me, that is creativity, because I'm creating something out of nothing. I get to have fun in the process. I always stick my tunes on and just have a dance. And I allowed that to guide me. And that is something that I have also been very passionate about in my line of work, is connecting people back with their most soulful experiences, the most soulful ways of being, because I do think that creativity just completely lives within every single one of us.
Absolutely. You touch upon so many important parts, I think. Like, at the end of the day, is a difficult like thing to define, right? What is creativity? But you're right in that. I think it's because it's a way of being. It can you can express yourself in any medium. I mean, the way you talk, the way you dress, the way you make this new bread recipe. I think prior, a lot of people used to think that it needed to, if in order to be validated in your creativity, you needed to do something that was unique. And
So true.
no, I was thinking about this recently, that like, what do you mean unique? Isn't it
Mm.
always going to be unique if you do something that's truly, coming out of you authentically? Because we're all unique. We're all unique combinations of genes and experiences and all sorts. So, what do you mean it needs to be unique? What really is behind that idea, what has been behind that idea, is it needs to be innovative and the market needs to want it. And it needs to be successful in that, right? When that's the idea, really, that's been like kind of taxiing along with that idea of uniqueness. But really, there is nothing to have to prove. Like, as long as you're channeling who you really are and aligning with that, and this is where the spirituality comes in, like, as long as you do that, anything you do is going to be unique and creative. Like, I really believe that. It doesn't matter, as you say, how many people are going to see it, if they're going to like it. Like, none of that actually matters. It's about you channeling that within yourself or through yourself. So this is why what you also said about like this podcast. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be the best podcast. That's a great space to be in, to make sure that you do this with love, with desire. You're letting your true self come out, and I think that is where it's all at.
Hmm. Oh my god, I was just listening to you and I was having to really fight with myself inside, because I was getting so excited that I just wanted to be like, oh my god, it's all right, and just like like really interrupt you and talk, and I'm like, no, be quiet, listen, because I'm finding this so energizing in itself, because I'm very passionate about this topic, and it's good, so good to talk to someone about this who also shares this type of work, as my business is leading towards even more creative expression. And I would love to hear about your in-person workshops. How has that experience been for you and your creativity, as well as what have you noticed about the creativity of the people that have been attending?
So for me, it's been an amazing experience because I've been having this idea for a long time to do something with this. Um, and then obviously when I first put it out into the world, I thought, oh no, is anyone actually going to show up? Like, what if they don't? I'm going to look really stupid. And
Mm.
then, having this kind of imposter syndrome part. But then people did. And it really kind of, people resonated with it and were like, oh, most, if not all of the sessions had a wait list. So it was just, that was one part where I was like, oh, it's materializing. And, this seed that I sensed that I really believed in, I was truth, as in it did resonate with people. And then the other thing is then seeing people then actually show up and come to these sessions where, the sessions are designed in a way in which they kind of fulfill some needs, I believe, that are out there amongst creative people. I mean, everyone's creative, but like people who want to invest in their creativity. And that's one is community, because I really feel so many people are kind of feeling alone and isolated. And it's one thing creating your on your own, but you face these challenges that actually so many people are facing. So in these sessions we to discuss specific topics, so like creative blocks or resistance, or like your how to craft your vision, and I offer tools on how to do that, like one or two tools. um but the idea is also that they're, the sessions also are facilitated in a way in which people can talk to each other and listen to each other. So it one of the biggest kind of things that I felt people were taking away from it was not just these tools, it was also this moment of listening to somebody speak about how tough it is to um, be really wanting to be creative, but then having this perfectionism constantly just like breathing down your neck, and then feeling paralyzed, and then or not daring to share your work, and then just seeing like everyone else just nod with these big eyes of like, me too, me too. And it's just this feeling of me too is so strong. This energy is really strong because I think that we've been lacking this coming together in creativity. So yeah, that's I think like what's given me a lot of fulfillment also in doing this.
I bet, because you get to be the person who provides that space for people, and you get to see just how much comes uncovered as a result of it. And it is such a common experience of, having these blocks and striving towards the the end goal. So 2 years ago, I was working long term with a coaching client. And when he first came to me, he was really struggling with his confidence, but he was also such a talented artist. And obviously, the two are massively interconnected. And he would be often talking about wanting to really create, but just felt like he started to dread it, and he was putting it off, and I was like driving him further away from doing it. So we did a lot of work around like building his confidence, like learning to enjoy the process, detaching from the outcome. And I feel that this element of being just really present is something that can help a lot of people to actually tap into themselves and the magic within them. Because yes, you attach from the outcome, but I feel like that's also when you open yourself up to so much possibility. Because let's say you have a picture in mind that you want to paint, but then if you sort of keep on striving towards it, you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself to get it right, for it to come out a certain way. Whereas if you just detach it and allow that creative and curious energy of the here and now to take over, I feel like that can actually yield much better results, much positive outcomes, and also satisfaction with the journey, because you're not feeling that pressure. So, luckily, by the end of it, my client did end up going back into art, and he felt very happy with it. And I feel like it was very much also a process. It's one of those things where I feel like the more you put it off, the more dread you're going to feel. And at one point, you literally just have to do it. Just try it. And I feel like even just by doing it and trying it out, because you're connecting back with that energy, it allows you to get back into that state of creative being. And I'm wondering, how would you be supporting people? What can you advise for people who are experiencing that creative block, or the ones that, they want to create, but they think about, is it going to be good enough? Like, they're really thinking about the outcome of it.
Yeah, it's something that happens a lot. I think what you're describing. I think a lot of us um, feel like creativity is a linear process, even though maybe consciously we might think, oh no, I would not say it's linear. But then we think, oh, we have a picture, and how do I get to the picture? I need to get like in this straight line to the picture, right? And then if it's not like the picture, then I'm going to just be really angry at myself for not having achieved this picture. Um, and it's interesting because I do this exercise in which I set people up to like try and illustrate that. Like, is that the process, or what other ways of making or like creating can you try and experiment, right? Like, what if instead of, um, right, I'm going to sit down and have a picture, I'm going to now make this picture. What if we just make anything first?
Mm-hmm.
And then we respond to that. We look at it, we just try and sense in our body and emotions and sense, how does that feel, what I just made? What would I want to do now? Like, and literally just turn it into a curious experiment. This is kind of how I would describe that. That you go, all right, created like the circle. Well, what can I do now with the circle? Okay, now I'm going to try and, what if I only took red dots and filled the circle in a way that's interesting. Now, what does that do to me? I think it's like this constant play with restrictions. One that can really help, and because that within the restrictions you can play, right? Because if you have endless options, then it's hard to get going. Sometimes just having like creating, I tell also myself to like, you create little experiments or little games for yourself. Like, what can I manage to do with only one sheet of paper and, I don't know, some post-its and sellotape or something. um but the idea is like you create little parameters for yourself within which you can get going, and then it's this interplay between the doing and then sensing and then doing again and then sensing again. And like this loop is the loop that I think you train, and through that you can, this is the mode you're like through which you can be creative. Like, it doesn't work if you're only sitting thinking and letting the critic like breathe down your neck. Then it's just impossible to get started. But if, or equally, only play is possible, but I believe it's like, it always, even if you feel like you're just playing, there's always this part of you that's observing, that's saying how it feels, or like putting it in one direction or taking it into another direction. Um, so I think the more closed these loops become, the more natural it feels. The more
Mm.
you're in this flow. That's how I would describe it.
That's so beautiful. And one, I feel like it's very validating for me because I have led a few creative workshops and I've just announced another one. My first
I
ever
saw that.
creative writing workshop is like a one-off and it's in person in 2 weeks' time. And I already have like a whole idea of how I'm going to run it. And I'm like, okay, this is great. Like hearing you, hearing how you support the people that come to your workshops. I'm like, yes, I'm on a great track here, which is fun. But I love what you said about like these setting these tasks. And I think you're right there because when you think about like if you're just sat in front of your desk and you're like, right, I'm going to create, the possibilities are endless. And that in itself can feel quite overwhelming. Whereas if you have like, if you're like, I'm going to draw a circle, that's your task. And then you're like, what's next? And you are more restricted, but it's so much easier to get into that flow state through these tasks because then it's kind of I feel like that's a really nice balance between the energies of being and the doing, because like you've got the structure of the task, but then still the creativity and the freedom to express whatever wants to be expressed, which I think is very lovely. Something that you said that I was like that I picked up on that I was going to ask you about or say something about.
This is my
Give me a
brain
moment.
all the time.
Yeah.
I was going to say something else about really being excited to see how your creative writing workshop goes along. Because I can really imagine, like, particularly the part, what I was describing about allowing the subconscious to emerge, that is with writing is a really great um, method or tool or medium for that. So,
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
so excited as well. Oh my god, I've been wanting to do it for quite a few weeks as well. And it's just been, I feel like I was waiting for the green light from my intuition to be like, go. And I received it loud and clear yesterday. So I was like, right, it's time to make it live. And I have ran like creative writing workshops before, but they were never just for the purpose of creative writing. So I used to run this program called Activating Authenticity. It's a 6 week program that I've run twice. That's all about connecting with like the depths of you and the different layers of you, coming to really love who you are across the different levels. And part of it is creativity. So on both rounds, I would do a session of creative writing. And the people in the program, I remember in the one round there was someone who was already quite creative, but not so much in a writing sense. But there was another person actually who wasn't that creative, and I remember they were like, "Oh, just a bit unsure." But we all have creativity within us. We're all connected to the source. So as a result, the outcomes, and also because they didn't know what to expect, I just took them through these series of different exercises. Everyone was like, wow, I can't believe this came out of me.
That's so
So
cool.
I'm very excited to apply that to the workshop that I'll be running in person, because it's going to be even more amplified as my ability to run creative writing workshops has increased. I know more, I'm more creative, and also it's going to be much longer. So yes, I am thoroughly excited. One concept that I do want to circle back to, I'll say circle back, we've not actually spoke about this during the recording, but we had a chat before we started recording about the idea of being curious when it comes to creativity, because we were saying before we started recording that curiosity is a really important part of creativity. It's almost like a process of just following random trails and becoming intrigued about the process and what's next and what else is there. And I really liked to look at the curiosity and the art of creating as if we're always starting off with a blank canvas, and when we allow ourselves to be curious, so much can happen on that blank canvas, and it can really take us by surprise, just the same way that the people in my program were always really surprised with the creative writing, to even everyday writing. Like I was visiting my hometown during the summer, and my friend needed to, well, he didn't need to, but he wanted to write something nice for his cousin who was going away to live in America. And he asked me to help with it. And he's not, well, everyone's a creative person deep inside, but he doesn't practice that in his everyday life. And I was like, you couldn't have chosen a better person to ask. Let's do it. And we sat down in a space of half an hour. We created the funniest, loveliest poem for his cousin to write in
Oh,
like her going away card. And he loved the process so much that it's been about 5 or 6 months since we've done it, and he's writing little poems almost most days now. So, like, that's what I love, because people are like, I'm not creative, I'm not creative. But then they are. Then they find out that they are.
Yes, I think the to summarize that really maybe is y- you think you know yourself, but you don't. You don't, and and that's not a bad thing. That's a fantastic thing that you don't know yourself. Life would be super boring if we did. What would be the point of life? Like, what would be the point of life if you knew all the answers to everything? It would just be really boring. There'd be no joy or surprise or none of that like would exist. So what I love about that story, and sorry, no, it made me feel really emotional because I love it. Like, is that we're not ever done like learning about who we are because you can't fully know yourself ever, and that's because our conscious mind is only such a small part of our psyche. It's just a part of our psyche. There's much more to it. We all know this because half of our lives we're asleep dreaming, for instance. Like, what is that? No one knows. No one has a really good scientific explanation of what that is. But it doesn't matter because, like, it is a part of your psyche. It's just you don't have control over it in a conscious way. And what's so great about creativity is that these are little portals for us into that part of our psyche that one connects us all as well. We're all connected through that. Like if you've ever, surely, like if you listen to this podcast, you will have experienced something that made you go, What is that?" Like, yeah, I mean, there's many different ways of describing that, but the great part is it's a mystery. We're not supposed to know everything. It's a mystery, and we have art or other ways of expressing ourselves to approximate that. And what I love so much about it is when you do that, when people really do that, not everyone might like what you do, but the people who do and that connect through your work with you, that's you connecting on a level uh, that's that's magical. Like, it's you connect on a level of soul, and that is, I think, really important in this time, in this day and age. Is so, like, I used to not actually believe 10 years ago that art was important. I had this mindset of like, yeah, but how is it helping people? Like, we need people to be fed. Like, how's art gonna help people? But now I'm like, no, we need to be sane. Because what are we doing to the world right now? Like, because we're completely estranged from ourselves and therefore from each other, and I really believe that, like, if we create things, it doesn't have to be art. It can be, as you said, like, you cook with creativity for your family, but the point is you align with yourself through creativity. If everyone would do that, I really believe we would be creating a different world now. I
100%.
really believe that.
Literally 100%. Oh my god, that was so exciting listening to everything that you've just said. I love what you said there about, like, not everyone's gonna get it, and they don't have to, because the way that I see it is, like, if you have a message for the world, if you try to make it fit into everyone's view, you're going to water yourself down. And I see that as a way of expressing, like, your beliefs, but also, yes, very much your creativity. You're never gonna appeal to everyone in the world. It's impossible because we're so complex. Everyone has such different opinions, different stories, journeys, views, beliefs, everything, that it's impossible to appeal to everyone. And it's not your job to appeal to everyone. Your job is to appeal to no one, literally not even yourself. Your job is just to express what wants to come through you. So I have known that I was going to be selling my paintings for quite a few years now, but I thought I that would be happening maybe when I'm like 50, 60, got grandchildren, early retirement, all of that. Like that's how I always envisioned it. Until um a few weeks ago, I got like slapped with this huge intuitive nudge message. Definitely not a nudge because it was literally like a huge slap that it was like, now is the time. Channel these paintings. And they are like energy paintings. So basically, I tap into whatever energy wants to come through me and I sit and I paint. And I don't consciously choose the colours, what goes on it. I just literally channel it. And I was like, oh my god, what on earth? Like, that is so cool. And I've honestly, I genuinely just find it so freaking cool that I do this. And I first announced it I was running this Telegram group for a week for this group of women. And the moment that I posted it, the painting, like I posted two paintings, one of the paintings went like this. And then I announced it to a slightly wider audience, to my mailing list, with a few more paintings, another painting gone. And I was like, wow, I'm a painter. That is the coolest thing in the world. But the reason why I'm bringing it up is because I was talking to one of my family members about it. And the paintings are yoni paintings, uteruses, things like that, essentially. Now, this male family member was like, what on earth? Why are you painting vaginas? That is so weird. And I'm like, because I was told. I was told to do these paintings by God. Who am I to argue with that? The energy is literally bursting through me. I need to do something with it. It's not for me to keep. I don't know how I'm going to keep it inside me. I need to do something about it. And quite clearly, it needed to be channeled because then they went, you know? And that is exactly what I told this family member. I was like, you don't get it because it's not meant to be for you. And it's just not meant to be. But the people who are meant to receive it obviously got it and they love it. So that's a little fun story. But what I loved about what you said earlier around this consciousness and unconsciousness and like the psyche, and I really love that because I do really see the creative process as very much a spiritual process because creativity is part of your spirit, and when you tap into it, you are expressing your soul's purpose, your destiny, and just overall expressing yourself, which is why once you surrender into the process, it feels so fulfilling and so magical. Um, and I love what you mentioned about the unconscious. You know, we spend half of our lives asleep, and we have no good scientific explanation for like what on earth happens. And for me personally, I receive a lot of intuitive messages through my dreams. So I do see all of that as a creative process. Recently, I got woken up at 5 a.m., which hasn't happened in a while actually, but with this intuitive message of you need to start working on your next creative project right now. And there was like instructions of what I needed to do and how I was going to approach it. Not ready to talk about what it is yet, but it's enormous and I'm so freaking excited. But I really do feel like the more people tap into this energy, seeing creativity is literally just a part of you, a type of energy that you just need to tap into. It doesn't have to mean anything. It can do if that's what you feel and you want it to, but it doesn't have to. Then I do think the world would be much more of a happier and magical place.
Yeah. So much of what you describe really is a really good example of how you trust that you have a great really because it's all marrying these different layers of our psyche, right? Like you mentioned spirit and then their soul and your body, right? all if they all aligned, then you are materializing from a higher plane into the material world. That's that. Like, but if you fight it, you can also fight it, right? Or not trust it, and then it's a
Mm.
lot more difficult to channel, right? But you seem to have a very like developed connection to that and intuition, to the degree also that you trust that if your ego might want to release that already, but like, no, I haven't received my message for that yet. I'm not feeling I'm ready for it yet. That is amazing, because I think a lot of people would struggle with that. They would just think, I need to know, and or it needs to be as fast as possible. How do you know what the right timing for that is? Like, you've no, like, how do you? There's just no, you can say, logically speaking, it makes more sense to do something quicker than not. Okay, but what if you release it now and the world isn't ready for it? Like, Hilma af Klint is this painter. I'm not sure if you've heard of her. She is a You would love her. She is, wow. She's just like, everybody. I urge you, go and check out Hilma af Klint. I'm probably mispronouncing her name. She is a Scandinavian painter, and she lived around the time of Malevich, around the time when abstract art. Malevich was always accredited as like the great grandfather of abstract art, right? Where abstract art, modern art started. But turns out he wasn't the start of that. He visited Hilma af Klint, and she was actually the start of it all. So now she's getting a big break, her big break, like post-human, like, she's died ages ago. But now everyone's like, wow, Hilma af Klint, and there's exhibitions everywhere. I really want to go to one of her
I'm
like
getting shivers. Oh my
exhibitions.
god.
She was a channeler. She was a medium. Her paintings are her just channeling visions that she had, and there's a lot of like symbology in her abstract work. But the reason why I'm talking about her is not that in itself is amazing. No, she had left very clear instructions that her paintings needed to be kept from the public until 20 years after her death. And only then was the world going to be ready for it. So she knew. She knew that, like, the world wouldn't have been able to be ready for her work yet. But she knew that probably because she was so in touch with her intuition. And I think this is where we need to learn. If we're blocked, if we're feeling it's like that is also intuition. Listen to that. Like, you don't have to, like, maybe it's not your time yet. And that's okay. Like, give yourself a break. Maybe you need to rest more. Maybe, it's also fine if your art, like, this is about being humble as well, right? Like, this position
Mm.
that you're describing of like, it doesn't have to appeal to everyone. I'm not supposed to know why why I'm supposed to do it. I just get the order, I just do it, I love it, like, I'm creating it from love. But yeah, that takes a cultivating that connection with that higher realm, I suppose, to be able to trust that much.
Wow.
So yeah.
Oh my god, that is so cool. I will be checking that out. That is so mind blowing that she left a note to, it has to be 20 years after her passing that it can go public. And wow, that is genuinely just incredible. And I feel like that really speaks volumes around people's abilities to detach from their experiences. Because, for example, so I known that I wanted to do have a podcast for years, and I feel that um, I could have quite easily for these last few days applied a label of the fact that I haven't done it yet as, like, I don't know, being lazy, being unmotivated, could have made it mean something about myself. Whereas actually, I was like, actually, it's just not the time. So instead of trying to make sense of what was happening and trying to rationalize why I wasn't doing it or trying to create motivation out of nothing, when it clearly wasn't the time. I just decided to trust that once the time was right, I would act on it. And then I got the message, now's the time. So I went and did it. And I feel like a lot of it, actually, a lot of what you've said, and then what I'm relating to is the idea that what if this creative block and our ill attitudes towards creativity are actually just disconnection from the source and disconnection from the spirit? Because if, let's say, what you're experiencing is this real desire towards creating, but something's stopping you, okay, maybe it's because you are disconnected from your soul and you're very much in your head and you're like, what is it going to mean? Is it going to be productive? Is it going to make me money? What are people going to think? That obviously is disconnection from the source, or can be the other way around, that maybe it's not the time and you're trying to push it. And creativity is a very natural process, and a big advocate for living in line with your natural cycles. So you can't force anything. You literally cannot force it. So if you're trying to force it, then again, you're disconnected from the source, and your own intuition that actually holds all the answers to the creative process that you should instead be following.
Yeah, I think the word force is really key there, you know? Like, I think it's, you know, um, it's good to try things and like to want to move forward and but it's about balance, right? Like how tightly are you clenching it? Like it's good if you want to give yourself a push every now and again. There's nothing wrong with that. If as long as you can do it lovingly, you know, as long as it's not like you're like hiya. And I laugh, but like wow, last year, whew, that I'm still in this space where I feel like I'm doing all these things, but I feel like I could have more energy. I could bring
Mm,
even more to it. It's just I feel like there's this, you know, I'm still living in under a little bit of a blanket of 2024 where I experienced a lot of grief and some really difficult times. So it's like I'm having to really put that into practice of like whatever comes out, it comes out, and you know
mm,
if maybe it's not my time for it to be 100% yet, but like it is what it is, and I'm as long as I make steps, I've noticed like getting a little bit of a thumbs up from spirit, you know. So it's like okay, cool, as long as we're like taking steps, I'll trust that the rest gets sorted out, and at some point I will have all the energy for it. But yeah, it takes for the ego to take a little bit of a back seat sometimes, you know, and like
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely a lot of balance of like, hearing the ego, not completely being like, you know, just being mean to it because it serves its purpose, but there is definitely that huge call towards trusting and surrendering into it because, like the way that I see it is like you could always be doing more. You could be feeling really energized, being at 100%, and you could still be like, actually, I could do more. And like, yes, that's the case, but I feel like that's just always going to be the case. So it's like, where are you going to find the enoughness in the season that you're in right now? Like, what if this is all that is meant to be created and that is already the 100%, that is already picture perfect?
Yeah, I think that is love, right? Like love is
Yes.
also an excess. Speaking of love, like happy Valentine's, but it's an acceptance. Like if you truly love someone, you accept them for who they are. It's the same for yourself. Like if you don't operate from that space of compassion for yourself and love for yourself, then it's hard.
Wow. I can't tell you how happy I am that we've approached this subject because I am a teacher of love. I teach people all about unconditional love because I also think, just like creativity, unconditional love is already a huge part of us. And my work as a spiritual teacher is to help people break down the barriers of perceiving that love.
Mm.
So when you marry the two, the love and the creativity, oh my god, the magic happens because you just have this complete acceptance and surrender and trust into all creative processes.
Absolutely. And the other thing for that is that I think like that is the light to grow towards, right? But the fact that we veer off from it sometimes is not something to be worried or shamed or like that's part of the process. It's
Exactly.
like, yeah, we need that. We need the dark as well sometimes. We need the sitting still and not doing anything as well. We need that to balance ourselves out. So
Yeah,
um yeah.
I agree. You can't be always in the frequency of love, light, and everything else. Everything exists in a polarity. There we go.
Yeah, for
That
sure.
is so fun. So, I'm wondering, do you feel like there is anything else that you would like to, like a little snippet of knowledge, key reflection point, or whatever that you'd like to share with our audience? And if not, can you tell us about where we can find you and how can we work with you?
Okay, so from the top of my, I'm really bad about thinking something random on the spot, but yeah, in terms of where you can find me on dear underscore 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 creative on Instagram. I'm also on Threads. I have a Substack as well that you can find also under Dear Creative. And you can find information there on the online offer that I will be launching soon, which is more online creative co-working, so body doubling. So we're all showing up and like having sharing our work and then like putting some creative hours in. Also, I'll be running more thematic workshops that delve into more specific themes online. So I'll be bringing the offer that I've been doing offline now online as well. If you're in Berlin, I'm also running 4 sessions in person on different themes in creativity in Prenzlauer Berg in a lovely space there, which will be happening every Thursday in March. And I recently also launched my creative guidance sessions. So if you're interested in a free half-an-hour call, you can book that also via my Instagram or website, dearcreative.com. Dear-creative.com. Yes.
Amazing. That is so wonderful. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about your online sessions. And
Thanks.
hopefully I can make it to the Berlin ones.
That'd be great.
I should be in Berlin end of July. So if there's something on, hopefully see if we can make
Let
it.
me know. Hopefully, I will also be there then. But
Oh
because I think I'll be
yeah.
out of Berlin around that. I might be in France. But
Okay.
yeah, but hopefully we'll catch each other.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for coming on and let us know what you thought in the comments.